So let's talk about the tech job market. To me, as an outsider looking in, I'm not a recruiter, I'm just in tech, but it just seems like things are rapidly changing. And I want to hear from you, especially for the people who are part of our community and they may be trying to break into tech. Hello, Tech Journey family. Listen, you are in for a treat. Today, we're going to be interviewing Jelen. She's a corporate recruiter, and she's going to share some tips and pointers on how to break into tech. If you're someone who maybe you're discouraged, you've been applying and it hasn't happened yet, she's going to tell you exactly what you need to do to land a job. She's going to talk about the current tech job market. Listen, great tips are ahead, so stay tuned all the way to the end of this video. Thanks for tuning in. We're so glad to have you here with us today. If you can just tell us and everyone that's tuning in a little bit more about who you are. We all know that you're a recruiter, but tell us a little bit about who you are. Tell us about your career background. How did you get into what you're doing now?
Yes, great question. So yes, my name is Jelen, and I've been in recruiting for about 9 years. So I started back in 2001 working for a staffing agency. I was a staffing specialist, more so for manufacturing and logistics. So I sat there kind of in that space for, I'd say, about 6 or 7 years. I was able to get experience as a staffing specialist. I moved up to a recruiter, market recruiter, to a recruitment manager, but all of those were based in, I would say, a staffing environment. So in 2001, I jumped out on a limb and I applied for a fintech company. And that was my break into tech recruiting, is applying position. Spoke with a lady named Jessica, a great person. She was willing to give me a chance. She said, you have a lot of those soft skills we're looking for, the eagerness, the hunger. So we want to hire you. And that was my intro into tech recruiting. But I also have a background, I'm majoring in computer engineering. So kind of, I was looking for a field where my job experience could align with my school experience. And that's how recruiting met tech, and together I became a technical recruiter from there.
Awesome. Well, that is like a really interesting story. So you started off computer engineering, but instead of taking that path, ended up on the other side as far as tech recruiting. So it's interesting, things kind of made a full circle. That's really cool hearing that story. So if you could just tell us a little bit more exactly, what is a corporate recruiter?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll start general and then kind of narrow down into the corporate recruiting, but you have different types of recruiters. For one, you have what I previously was doing, the staffing agency portion of the recruiting, where they have contracts with corporations to fill their hiring needs and vacancies. Then you have freelance recruiters who usually are independent contractors that might have that contract with a corporation or an agency, but usually work for themselves as an independent contractor. And then finally, you have the corporate recruiters, which is are usually employed by the corporation they're recruiting for. And they work to really aim to fill vacancies with the best candidates while also ensuring a positive candidate experience throughout the recruitment process. But essentially, they work for that corporation and fill only those corporation hiring needs. So in general, corporate recruiters will work on job analysis. So they'll work with hiring managers to really understand the requirements and qualifications for any open positions. They'll also work to source candidates. So they're utilizing various methods such as LinkedIn, Google Boolean searches, any social media platforms. So they are handling that sourcing portion as well. Screening candidates. When it comes to corporation or corporate recruiter, usually the candidate, the corporate recruiter is the first person that candidate has contact with. So they're screening those candidates, getting to know them, making sure that they're suitable for the position, interviewing. Sometimes I refer to myself as a glorified scheduler because you are doing those interviews for hiring teams, hiring managers and whatnot. and then selection. So they also are in the process of selecting that final candidate. They're assisting hiring managers with making those final decisions and also presenting any job offers to that candidate. And finally, some corporate recruiters do this, some don't, but the onboarding process, just depending on corporation policy, what they have in place. Sometimes the recruiter is a part of the onboarding process, sometimes they're not. But usually they'll collaborate with HR, just ensure that there's a smooth transition from the time they accept the offer to the time they start the position.
Wow. So you as a recruiter, you're literally involved in every step of the hiring process. From the application, sometimes even to onboarding and even selection.
Yes.
So that is great to hear, guys, because sometimes when we think about recruiters, we think, oh, this is the initial person, and then after that, I'm going to be passed on. But you're actually intricately involved in every step of the way.
Exactly.
That's cool. That's really cool. So let's talk about the tech job market. To me, as an outsider looking in, I'm not a recruiter, I'm just in tech, but it just seems like things are rapidly changing. And I want to hear from you, especially for the people who are part of our community and they may be trying to break into tech. And it seems like just from last year to this year, things are different. So if you could just give us like a little comparison, what was the job market like, specifically the tech job market like pre-COVID? What was it like last year? And then what is it looking like right now?
It's a great question. And yes, there's just been a lot of ups and downs within the tech, specifically within the tech job market. So pre-COVID, I was in that kind of manufacturing logistics recruiting process. So I got into tech recruiting actually during COVID in 2001, or I'm sorry, 2021. But however, you know, I want to say, I don't want to say it was easy to get a job pre-COVID, but if you had the skills, the talents, the jobs were there, and it was a simple process to get the interview. And if you had those skills that they're looking for, potentially get that job. And so we saw that happening. I'd say the beginning of COVID 2020, there was an uptick, especially with these FANG companies, you know, your big Netflix, your Facebook, your Apple. We saw a lot of uptick in them hiring for technical positions. So that's the beginning of COVID. As we kind of went into 2021, that roller coaster was still going up there. And then it seems like as we went into 2022, it kind of started coming down. We started noticing a lot of hiring teams had overestimated the talent that they were looking for, or overestimated the business needs as it relates to the tech talent that they needed on the team. So we kind of saw that decline go down. Yes, so a lot of layoffs were happening in 2022. Especially looking on LinkedIn, every time it just seemed like something, you know, someone was getting laid off. So we kind of saw that downtick go down. So what I'm noticing now as we are midway into 2023 is that we're kind of level setting. You know, most of those big companies have done their layoffs, whether it was 1 to 4 rounds, whatever they did. They're kind of sitting with the staff they have now. I'd say I work for a mid-sized tech company. We haven't seen a big turnover simply because we were very conscientious of our hiring needs, what we're looking for, and making sure that it was within the budget that we had. So, you know, I'd say that it's level setting where the tech market is right now. And we're kind of finding an even ground to work with while I don't want to say post-COVID because essentially we're still there.
We're still all right.
Exactly. Right. We're just leveling out to the pandemic and the effects that has happened from that.
Okay. Yeah, that explains it. So that was always my theory. But of course, I'm not a tech recruiter. But it just seemed like a lot of people, when my husband and I were trying to break in, a lot of people were apprehensive. And their reason was because they were looking at those big companies like Google and Apple and, you know, Microsoft. And they're like, well, these companies are all having these large layoffs. Why are you trying to go into tech? And so I tried to explain to them, it just seems like it's these larger companies that are having a lot of layoffs, but you still have so many mid-size. I work for probably what you would consider a smaller tech company, but you still have these mid-size and smaller tech companies that are still hiring and still doing well. I think it's because being conscious of overhiring, overestimating the need, like you said. And so I think a lot of times when people hear tech, and they associate it with layoffs and they think it's happening across the board. But from what you're saying, it just depends on the company. It doesn't mean like now is a bad time to enter into tech, but you do want to be considerate of the company that you're about to work for.
Exactly. And I would say, I don't want to speak too soon, but a lot of the layoffs have kind of settled. So if a company was going to do layoffs, usually that has already been taken care of. I mean, they're still happening today, but I'd say the majority of that has kind of leveled out by now. But a lot of mid-sized to small companies were not greatly impacted as much as those FANG companies, those big tech companies. So yes, I definitely agree. I started in fintech for a company named Smarsh, and I'd say they roughly had maybe 1,000 to 1,500 employees. So regular mid-size, they still went through a layoff, but I think they're leveling. The company I work for now, WebPT, we have not seen a big layoff and we don't anticipate one happening anytime soon. So we're not seeing that huge continuation of the layoff period. So like you said, it really depends on where you're applying for and who you're wanting to work for.
Awesome. That's good to know. I know a lot of people are going to be encouraged just hearing you say that, Jelen. So would you say that the tech job market right now is overpopulated? What are your thoughts on that?
That is a good question. I'm going to say no. and the reason, yes, the reason being is because our society is moving more to a tech-based society. Technology is going nowhere anytime soon. So technology is here to stay, and I believe that is our new future. So as far as it being overpopulated, maybe within the layoffs and people, especially what happened with last year, but I believe as software companies are still developing, a lot of people and a lot of corporations, it's all about automating. Everyone wants to automate everything. Everyone wants to streamline their processes. So that is the new wave. That's what we're moving forward to. And that's where technology comes in to help, the job market, to help be able to streamline those processes. So I don't think it's overpopulated. Like I said, I believe it's level setting. And I believe a lot of people who were laid off that have a technical background might be able to find employment elsewhere. But as far as it dying over or just being oversaturated with employees, I believe we're still turning that wheel, but technology is not going away anytime soon.
Jelen, you're saying a lot of what we say, but you're like a professional. So it's always better hearing from someone who's actually in that space. But you're right. Technology isn't going anywhere. If anything, technology is going to advance. Tech companies are going to grow as the demand for automation increases. So people, please don't get discouraged. If you're trying to break into tech, maybe it's been taking you a while, but don't give up, because this is literally, in my opinion, this is one of the best industries to try to get into because it's so futuristic. It may be difficult to get in, but once you're in, I mean, really, you can go anywhere. So, Jelen, thank you for saying that. Look, it came from Jalen's mouth, not mine. That's really good to hear. So can I ask you just what roles would you say? So like my husband and I were on the sales side of things, still for tech companies, but not really so much like an actual technical position. And then we have, of course, many different roles that we've interviewed, and you can always check out those interviews on the channel. But would you have like an opinion on, would you say like which roles are in most demand?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for one, software engineers and developers, that's going nowhere anytime soon. Having proficiency in programming language like Python, Java, JavaScript, C#, and having experience in developing web and mobile applications are highly sought after, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. A lot of these companies and software leading companies are needing those engineers to run their software. So if you're majoring, whether it's front end, back end, full stack engineering, you can find a company that's looking for engineers. That's not going anywhere. So as well as site reliability and DevOps engineers. So DevOps, when I speak to candidates, I'd say it's a new job, I would say within the last 10 years, but essentially those are the guys that are bridging the gap between the software development and IT operations. So they're working to streamline the software delivery process and ensure continuous integration and deployment for the software. So if you are majoring or get a degree in IT and want to move into DevOps or SRE, the market is there. I remember looking for SRE, site reliability engineers. I always struggle finding candidates because they are so sought after. And a lot of these big companies previously were giving them really nice retention bonuses to stay where they were at. So it was harder to find those candidates. So the market is great if you're wanting to do DevOps or SREs.
So just to ask before you go on, I mean, this is great. Like, I'm like, we're going to ask Jelen everything we want to ask. But what a lot of the people who are part of our community and watching right now currently, what would be like an entry-level job for a person who wanted to eventually be more like an engineer or developer?
Oh, that's a great question. So I would apply for entry-level software engineering positions. I would start there. So if you find a job that maybe looking for a year or less experience, for one, you need to have the schooling, you need to know how to program. But once you get all that information, start for those entry-level software engineering positions, get that experience, get that tenure in that position, and the sky's the limit, essentially. So just really finding that one position that's looking for those entry-level candidates, and then exploring your opportunities from there.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, I hope I didn't interrupt you if you were about to say something, but I was like, I gotta ask this question. Did you have anything else you wanted to say as far as like any other high demand roles? Yes. And IT is so broad. There's so many different things you can go into. So I mentioned SRE DevOps. I mentioned software engineering. Cybersecurity is another great one to get into, especially with the rise of cyber threats. There's been a significant demand for cybersecurity professionals, and that market is fairly new. So getting in there, getting that experience, that's a good one. And then also data analysts, data scientists. A lot of corporations have increased reliance on data-driven decision-making, which has created a boost in demand for data scientists and analysts. So if you like data, if you like presenting that, you like looking at charts and whatnot, data analysts and scientists is the way to go. And then also we talk about tech being the future, AI, machine learning, all those things. Becoming specialists in those things, that's what we're moving forward to: artificial intelligence, machine learning. So getting any certifications or just getting schooling into those things. And lastly, just network engineers, with the growing complexity of networks and the increased demand for reliable connectivity, network engineers are in high demand due to that. So those are just a few things within the IT umbrella that are high in demand and probably are going to be for a while now. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jelen, for just explaining that to us and, just giving us a little bit more insight. So how would you say that a person, is a very bold question, but how would someone get hired in 2023?
That is a great question. So I have a list of steps that I'd want to hit on here. So for one, to get an interview, which would be the first step, is making sure that when you are looking at a job description, that your resume matches what the job description is saying. So tailoring your resume to the job description. Be strategic about who you're applying for. I always encourage people who are looking for work, don't apply to 100 plus jobs a day. Really tailor the companies that you're wanting to work for, and make sure that your resume matches that job description. So if you're looking at a position for a software engineer and say they're looking for a front-end engineer, let's say you have a full stack experience, but you also have that front end experience. Make sure that your job or your resume outlines that experience that you have as a front end engineer. Us as recruiters, ideally, it's probably not the best, but we're probably spending 5 to 10 seconds on a resume, skimming, looking, and making sure that you have those experience. And ideally, a recruiter will have the job description, hiring manager notes, and your resume, and they're looking for those similarities between the both of those things. So if we look at your job description and we're having to pick out what we're looking for, odds are you might be overlooked or just passed on as we're continually looking for other candidates. So that's the first thing, is tailoring your resume to that job description. And then also, and I'm sure you've heard this a lot from many other recruiters, but prepare for your interviews. Prepare.
Yes.
You can never underestimate this portion of the process. So review the company, look at their values, look at what they do, and really, essentially, and I tell a lot of candidates this, you really get a job based on how well you sell yourself. I've seen where someone has all the criteria on paper, they look great, but the job might go to someone else who has maybe more a little greener skills simply because of how they sold themselves.
Wow.
So prepare yourself, review that company, mock interviews, speak with friends, look in the mirror, ask your questions. But you just want to prepare as much as you can. Prepare questions that they might be asked. The internet is a great tool to be able to look at typical interview questions for whatever particular position you're applying for. So make sure you do that. Prepare that information. And then as you're going through the process, feel free to ask the recruiter for tips on how to be most successful as well. So those things will definitely help you. And then also send a follow-up email. Sometimes you get off the call with a recruiter and say they have 6 calls a day. And as they're going through their email at the end of the day, they might look at that email and say, okay, this person's skills and experience align up with this job description based on this. And as we're preparing our notes for the hiring manager, it's easy to look at what you've already outlined for how your skills match the job description for us to prepare that and send that to the hiring manager.
Awesome. Wow, Jalen, that is so helpful. Thank you so much. So what I want to know, so is experience more important than education?
That is the die-hard question here. So I believe, and this is just through my personal experience, experience is going to be more important than education, especially working for the company I work for currently. A lot of the education is kind of in that nice to have section of the job description, but that experience is the hard rock requirement of what we're looking for. So if you have that experience, that's going to trump your education. But however, it really depends on the role. So, with software engineers, you're going to need to have some schooling or something you've gone through to be able to code, program, and write whatever you're doing for that particular job. However, I would definitely say experience more than likely is going to trump that education there.
Okay, that's good to know. And so I think, and this is my opinion, of course, but so for a person that's looking to break in, maybe you don't have that experience, would you suggest, hey, shoot for entry-level jobs into tech? And then once you're in, then you can use that experience to basically climb the corporate ladder in a tech company.
Exactly. I 100% agree with that. I would also suggest someone entry level, network. A lot of times candidates get interviews or just get exposed to the company because of who they know that's within that company. So reach out to people who work for that company and, in my recruiting experience, essentially sometimes these candidates that are referred get priority over someone who's just applied. So being able to have that network capability, being able to say, hey, I see you work for XYZ, tell me more about the company, I'm interested in joining, things like that. So of course that comes with having a great LinkedIn profile.
Hey, you took the thought literally out of my mind. LinkedIn. I'm thinking that's what LinkedIn is for.
Yes. Especially for those entry-level positions, you are going to want to network. And then also, everyone started somewhere. So it's good to speak with other people. How did you get started? How did you get into your journey of where you are now? So being able to take the content of what people say and apply it to your situation, anyone can break into anything essentially. So yes, I'd say apply for entry levels for people with little to no experience, and then also network as much as you can.
Awesome, man. Jelen, you are giving us some really, really good tips. So, what do recruiters look for? So this is a big one. Now I know you told us about, how to land a job, but what specifically are you looking for when you're looking at a candidate?
That is a great question. So when I'm speaking with a candidate, for one, I'm looking for a great communicator. How are you at articulating your skills and experience for why you believe you are a great fit for this position? So I'd say that's my biggest thing, is being able or listening to someone to explain their story, explain their background, and why they are a potential good fit for this role. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier, sell yourself. You can never oversell, because that's essentially what you're doing on paper, your resume, or that's what you're doing in an interview. Yourself. So a great communicator. And then secondly, I'm looking for great energy. So are you interested in this position? What draws your interest? Are you a team player? Do you want to be on the phone with me? Things like that. So I'm looking for energy. Yes. Just the want to, I guess I'd say. So that comes with that energy. Essentially kind of the vibe that you're giving during that phone screen or in-person interview, whichever it may be. So I'd say those are the two big things recruiters looking for, is a great communicator, selling yourself, and why you are a great candidate for this job. Obviously, if we have you on the phone, that means on paper, there's some things that we like. So we're getting you on the phone to kind of dig more into that. So being able to articulate your experience and skills is a big thing. And then just having that want to join the company.
Awesome. Okay. Great advice. Now, before we go, Jelen, can you leave our community with just some tips? Anything that you would say to a person, especially someone who's been trying to break in, maybe it just hasn't happened for them, or someone who maybe has broken in and then maybe it wasn't what they thought. Just some tips or encouragement for the people who are tuning in.
Yes, that's a great question. So my tip would be, if you're looking to break into tech, for one, I keep saying over and over, but network with people, reach out to people, have your resume reviewed by someone that's in the industry. You can reach out to whoever you want, but having just that touch base to say, is this accurate for what I'm looking for? Maybe you can go into LinkedIn, you can search by title, the type of people or the type of job that you're looking for, and it'll populate several people within that field. Reach out to them, say, hey, and there's nice people out there. There's people that will help you. I know when I was looking for my position, I reached out to someone and said, hey, can you just review my resume? And she did that. And I didn't owe her anything. It was just something nice she did for me. So there's nice people out there. So I would network, have your information, your resume reviewed, because the hardest thing is getting that first interview. So if you can get that, we can kind of work through there from there. So, and then also just learning how to sell yourself. Sell yourself. It doesn't sound as pleasing as some might, but really that's what's going to get you that job. Like I said, I've seen it to where someone has skills on paper that necessarily have all the skills, but it's just the way they were able to articulate their experience. There's a way that they were able to speak to how they match that job description and why they would be the best fit. So if you can hone in on those two things, then there's a lot of resources on YouTube, on Google, your channel, for example, on how to kind of do that back end homework work to prepare yourself for those things.
And that's good, Jalen. I'm so glad you said that, because someone may be watching and they're like, okay, well, I don't know how to sell myself. But you can basically learn how to do it. You know, like you said, there are YouTube videos, there's Google videos. To me, the biggest thing is confidence. So if you don't believe in yourself, you can't convince someone else. So I think just getting that level of confidence up. And sometimes it may be so discouraging because you may be applying. You're trying to get a job. It's been months and nothing has happened. Well, you have to go into each day, each interview like it's brand new. Because if you bring that negative thought and that negative thinking to this interview, then people pick up on it, you know? And so that if you're coming from a place that's discouraged, or you're down on yourself, maybe you're being hard on yourself because it's not happening, you're just really setting yourself up before you ever start the interview on a negative footing. So going in with confidence, knowing this is a whole new day, a whole new opportunity, and then wanting to really portray that you're the person for the job. So you can't let, you know, the no's and the rejections from the past hinder the opportunity you have in front of you. And that would be just my little tidbit to add.
Exactly. Every opportunity is a new opportunity, and you should treat it as such. And, you know, all the no's you get, you're just that much closer to one yes. So just stay at it, stay diligent. Like I said, be strategic. You know, if you say, oh, I've applied to over 500 jobs in 1 week, like, slow down. Maybe we need to review your resume. Like I said, be specific with what you're looking for. Make sure that resume is tailored to that job description. So yes, you're definitely right. And having that confidence, that will sell you more so than any skills or experience, education on paper.
Awesome. Awesome, Jalen. Thank you so much. I mean, you gave us a lot of really good tips and pointers, and I'm so glad to have you on our channel. We really appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. You have a great day, and I appreciate it. I love being here. So thank you for the opportunity.